Welcome. This is Her America. I'm your host, Chaida. Hello, everyone. I am sitting here with Chief of Police Mark Talbot. Mark Talbot was appointed as Chief of Police for the City of Norfolk in May of 2023. So we're just coming up on a year.
That's correct.
How exciting. Did you do anything to celebrate or come here?
I came to work and worked real hard that day. That's how I celebrate.
Excellent. That's a good day. In fact, some of the few things that you should know about the Chief of Police, he started his career back in Pennsylvania as a correctional officer. After that, he was with the Reading Police Department in 1994. Then he moved on to become director of the Pennsylvania Department of State's Bureau of Enforcement and Investigation, and you spent a long time in Pennsylvania based on the history that I've learned. And then he accepted a new position as Chief of Police in Hampton in July of 2021, and then was appointed as Chief of Police for the City of Norfolk in May of 2023.
That about sums it up. Yeah.
Yes. So I want to start off with what sparked your interest in policing?
So in the small town that I grew up in, I became relatively close to a local police officer in my small town who took the time to pay attention to me as a young child. And since that point, I've wanted to be a police officer. So I don't have any memories of a time when I didn't want to be a cop.
Really? So you've known since you were early as a kid?
I was probably 4 or 5 years old when I first developed the interest and decided that I was going to be a police officer.
Of course. Were there things as a correctional officer in Pennsylvania that you saw that are similar to what you see on the outside as far as patrolling in areas?
What feels poignant to me about my experience in corrections is the opportunity to develop the skill to communicate with people that had different life experiences than I had. You know, vast majority of the people that I came into contact with at the Chester County Prison suffered from some sort of trauma early in their life, suffered from mental health challenges, disadvantaged backgrounds, the gamut of things that ultimately lands people in those kinds of difficulties is what I ran into as a young correctional officer back in Pennsylvania. So not so much that the responsibilities were like policing, but the experiences of dealing with people who, as I said, had different challenges and experiences than I had is what I remember most clearly.
Excellent. As you know, I wanted to talk into the budget a little bit. Norfolk Police Department is really looking at some new changes. According to the Norfolk Police job site, it stated that police recruit can make $44,342, and then it will be bumped up to $53,408 once they are sworn in and are considered patrol officers. In the news, it was stated that you became the second highest city police chief in the state. You're right after Arlington Police Chief of Police. Do you believe the compensation for officers and what they do on a day-to-day basis is considered fair for what?
Policing, that's a really interesting question. Policing is enormously challenging, as we know, and it's
Mhm.
one of the most difficult jobs in public service, and I would submit it's one of the most difficult jobs, period. The value of great policing far exceeds the salary that we pay the people that do it. Unfortunately, you get the police department that the city can afford, not necessarily the police department the city deserves. So salaries tend to fall along the lines of the economics of the particular jurisdiction. Is it enough? You know, the question on the table, is it enough? Probably not. You know, we probably should pay police officers a lot more. We should pay teachers a lot more. We should pay firefighters a lot more, and we should probably pay nurses a lot more. Those that are caring for our children, we should probably pay them a lot more. I think that there are a lot of professions where the people that do those jobs are significantly underpaid, including the police. So there is that. You alluded to my salary. You know, I obviously, and I would say appropriately, make a whole lot more than an entry level police officer. At this point in my career, we rarely hire anyone who was even born when I started my career. Uh, it, Police chief in 2024 is more complex than it's ever been. And it's not exactly what anybody would call a stable job. You know, I'm living at least 300 miles away from anybody that I can call my family. So if we want to invest in the safety of our cities, frankly, we're going to have to pay very competitive salaries to attract good candidates. And I very candidly wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the fact that I was being paid a competitive salary.
Excellent. Um, I thought that when it comes to paying city employees, it really comes down to the city's economics and taxes.
Mm-hmm.
And so if a city doesn't make that much, it's going to be reflected in what they pay their city employees.
That's right. That's right.
According to the new police budget this year, it is expected that officers and personnel alike are going to receive a 7.5% increase. So hopefully, as the year goes on, there'll be bonuses and other ways to compensate officers for the things that they do on a day-to-day basis.
Indeed.
What are some investments you would make for the police department if it was up to you?
Well, to a significant degree, it is up to me. You know, what kind of programs and projects and the technology that we purchase for the organization. I think what is most important is that we focus our attention on acquiring the best candidates for these positions. It's important that we spend our money wisely on the right technology, like the flock cameras that we have in our city that help keep the city safe and make sure it's reducing some of our property crimes. I think it's important to invest in training. Uh, Policing is enormously complex, and making sure that the complexity of the work is not, uh, we don't fail at it because our thinking isn't as complex as the work needs us to be. So that means we got to train and develop our officers in ways that allows us to keep pace with uh, the challenges.
Awesome. According to the public, there seems to be a favorable opinion of you and also a very critical point of view. You've been applauded for your efforts to reduce crime in the area. You also like to be very engaged in the public. Last year, you did a meeting at a local library where you shared with constituents and residents in the area. I shouldn't say constituents in the area about what are some ways that you're going to help keep them safe on a daily basis. As a leader, what are some things you would like people to know about you?
I'm deeply committed to this work. I have given nearly all of my adult life to law enforcement. I just passed. I'm in my 31st year in policing. As you alluded to, I actually started in corrections in 1990, so well over 30 years in the business. I have an intense personality, which means that when I want to achieve something, I'm pushing as hard as I can to achieve those goals. What that happens to be at this point in my life is making people safer and reducing victimization and creating an organization that is fair to the public, that minimizes the force that we are using to make communities safer, and also an organization that is treating those within the organization fairly. There are all kinds of ways to be disadvantaged. Those disadvantages play out in the community. They also play out inside organizations. So whether or not you are someone who is a female, or you're someone who is in the LGBTQ community, or you're someone who's simply different than everybody else, there are a number of ways to be marginalized. And I feel very strongly about reducing those forces, both in the community and in the organization.
Awesome. How would you describe relations between the department and the city of Norfolk today?
I would first say that I don't get to determine what relationships between the police and the public are like. The public gets to decide. It appears to me that things are going in the right direction. I get lots, I'm out in the community all the time, every single week. And I get a ton of positive feedback about the performance of the police officers, which is not to say that it is all positive, the feedback that I get. I also get some critical feedback about the work that we do, and I make sure to act on the critical feedback and make sure that the things that we're doing that people like and appreciate, we keep doing it. So the short answer is, it seems that things are going well, and we need to keep pushing for them to go better.
Back in 2020, it seems the public grew very angry of police officers. As you know, George Floyd incident happened, and then there was demands for defunding the police, and riots across the country spread. Every city in the Hampton Roads area has a shortage of police officers. That's not just Norfolk, that's also Chesapeake, Virginia Beach. How has staff shortages affected response time and effective policing?
That's a really good question. So with a smaller police department, you struggle in ways that you're not going to struggle with a larger police department. You will often hear somebody in a leadership position say, well, you got to do more with less, but you actually do less with less. That's just how it works, right? So there are crimes that we respond to um, slower than we responded to them when we had, 150 more police officers than we have now. What we make sure that we're doing is paying attention to when there is an emergency, and the emergency is such that we need to get there quickly. In other words, the vast majority of what happens in any police department, the amount of time that it takes the police to get there isn't really a factor in whether or not we bring someone into custody, or whether we're able to keep the people there safe. When we have those kinds of conditions in place, then we get there as soon as we can. But when somebody's life is on the line and we do need to get there fast, then we get there fast.
Yes. So you will say that you agree that officers now are overburdened than they were in the past?
Uh, I wouldn't necessarily say overburdened. I certainly would say burdened.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that they are absolutely carrying more weight than they did at other times in our city. And it's important to honor that, first of all, acknowledge that the officers on the front line are working harder than they did at other times. So that is absolutely true.
According to various sources, it was stated that the department had a goal of reaching 757 officers. Is that still goal? Is that the goal still? Or do you believe that 757 officers is enough to police a city that has a population of 232,995 civilians?
We don't need 750 police officers. I would say that the goal for us at this point is somewhere around 720 police officers. But we're also doing some things that are going to maximize our effectiveness without necessarily increasing the size of the organization, such as looking at each position within the organization to see, could we hire a non-sworn professional to do a number of the jobs that police officers are now doing. Once we identify those roles, and we've already identified several of those positions where we can bring a good professional staff member on board, train them to do that work, and allow that police officer to go out and do things that it requires a gun and a badge to do.
What are some ways you would like to educate the public about police work? Would you like to venture out on social media? I know that seems to be a new craze, but among various police departments, they like to post little fun clips about safety, what to do when you're out on the road, partnering, for example, for club scenes, what to do when you're in college, things like that. What to do when you're at home, how to feel safe. Would you be interested in finding creative ways to educate the public about police work?
I might be a little different, and I actually think people largely know what the cops do. You can't turn your channel more than 2 or 3 times before you come across a cop show. And although many of them aren't great reflections of the reality of police work, some of them are, and there are plenty of reality shows that'll show you what cops do. So I don't really think that there's this big shortage of information about what police officers do. I think we probably in policing need to have a better understanding of what residents in our communities what their lives are like in the neighborhoods that we go to the most. I would say that the knowledge gap that is most important is, what does it feel like to live in a community in which your personal safety is something that can't be taken for granted, like it can be for most of us. I've gotten caught up myself in the, put everything on social media that you're doing. I don't know if it works. I actually am not a massive fan of it. In my eyes, it really seems to me that it is us. It is the police that needs to work harder in understanding the public, not vice versa.
Understood. Well, that wraps us up for all the questions that I have for you today. Is there anything that you would like to share to give input or insight or wisdom that you would like the audience to remember?
Just a little plug for our organization. We are hiring both professional staff members and police officers. It is a great profession. I have enjoyed, frankly, a very good life. I've been able to provide very well for my family based on this profession. I've traveled all over the place. I've seen a lot of things. I've had just a tremendous career that I'm still enjoying to this day. Anybody out there who's interested, reach out to us.
Yes, and you can also visit Norfolk Police Department jobs if you want more information about different opportunities for the department. I am a firm believer in backing the blue. I am unapologetic about it. And especially in the Black community, there seems to be a lot of strife when it comes to policing. So I always am coming to the table and willing to have conversations with officers on the street and here in the offices. So thank you so much, Chief, for giving me this opportunity to have these conversations with you. And I hope it will bring about good things.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.